The Green Bay Packers put together one of the most impressive drafts in the NFL this year, attacking mainly two key areas of need heading into the 2023 season. We go through the important storylines that come out of day 3 and the whole draft, plus we push forward to what comes next with the Green Bay Packers. All of that on today's show.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. In fact, as of this recording, we are the #1 team-specific football podcast, not just NFL, football podcast in America. Thanks to everyone who came on this wonderful journey with us over the last few days. Live show Thursday, live show Friday. We even had technical difficulties on Friday getting our show posted from Thursday night, and we still put together a record weekend. Again, thank you all so much for being here. If you missed or are catching up, we had 2 instant reaction little 7-minute clips and then 2 full shows Thursday night, Friday night. Go back and check those out if you somehow missed them. We're going to talk about day 3. We're going to talk about storylines, and we're going to talk about what comes next, because that is the important stuff coming out of the 2023 NFL draft. So let's rewind, right? Let's go back in time. It's Friday night, Saturday morning. The Packers have gone out. They've grabbed Lucas Van Ness. And they're on Friday. You get pass catcher to help Jordan Love and this offense. And then so I was like, okay, where do they go from here? Where do they find value? Can they find value? And the beauty of it, and this was one of the big things, is when they drafted Jaden Reed in the 2nd round. Again, a pick I didn't love, but understood in the moment. They traded back twice, and I didn't quite get that. I was like, there's good players here. Go draft Jalen Hyatt. They didn't do that. We talked about that on our Friday show. Since then, I've had some conversations with some people. There were some reasons for that were not entirely related to what is happening on the field. Not attitude related. Can't really go into it. But the Packers on day 3, in those trade downs, they traded down twice, and they add picks that become Dontavian Wicks, the receiver from Virginia, who was a Packers type all day. We'll talk about Wicks in a second. And Carl Brooks from Bowling Green, who's going to add depth to this defensive front. And I'm actually going to put the picks together, because going pick by pick, I don't know that makes a ton of sense. In the 4th round, they got Colby Wooden from Auburn. And I got a text from Zach Blackerby, who is our Locked On Auburn host. And he was just like, that guy's a freak. He is one of the best interior pass rushers in college football. Started as a redshirt freshman, played the edge last year, but he is really, really disruptive. Not even 22 years old. And he is going to be a factor on this defensive front. Someone who can play inside, who can play outside. And then, as I mentioned, Carl Brooks from Bowling Green. He was an edge for some people. It's a weird in-between body type. He's got a really thick lower body. I mean, he's got that A.J. Dillon lower body. He's 6'3", 300 pounds, played on the edge of Bowling Green, can play on the inside. It sounds like he's going to play as a defensive tackle. I believe that's how he was announced on the website. He's shown as a defensive lineman. He can play 3-tech. He can play 5-tech. He can play, if they're going to play a bunch of these penny fronts, double 3-techs, all kinds of different things that they can do. They've added versatility. Lucas Van Ness, their 1st round pick. He can play 5-tech. He can play, in fact, he played a lot of 3-tech as an interior, like a defensive tackle alignment. All of the guys that they drafted defensively can play really anywhere on their defensive line and have played anywhere on their defensive line. I think that signals a change in terms of this defense and what they want to be. Okay, then you add in the pass catchers. Dontavian Wicks was a Packers type from the get-go. Our pal Jake Morley alerted me to both of the receivers that the Packers drafted on day 3 as tier 1 Packers types. Size, speed, good enough agility, productivity. Now, Dontavian Wicks is the kind of player who, watch the 21 tape, don't watch the 22 tape. In 22, he had one of the worst drop rates in the country, was leading college football in drops for a long time. He does not have a hands problem. Last year, he had a concentration problem. Still only 21 years old, and in 2021 was spectacular. And he ran 4.6 at the combine, but had a hip injury, shut things down, went out at his pro day and ran in the low 4.5s, 4.52. I heard that at least one other team had him in the high 4.4s. He doesn't look 4.4 fast to me. Looks in that 4.52, 4.55 kind of range, but wins vertically, good release package, good body control. He is the kind of player that I think can come in and be a surprise. I compared him to August Geronimo Allison because in August against other teams' backup cornerbacks, Geronimo always looked really, really good. Body control. He could, because of his size and ball tracking, he could win vertically. But in the season, in the games, and especially after some of the injuries really took a toll on his athleticism, he was the kind of guy who just couldn't afford his athleticism to wane, wasn't fast enough, wasn't explosive enough. Wicks is a 9+ RAS athlete, relative athletic score. Explosive jumps. Jumped 38 inches, over 10 foot broad, elite burst metrics. And you see it on tape. Explosive off his cuts, explosive getting vertical. He is the kind of player who can come in and contribute. And they only got this pick because they traded down twice in the Jaden Reed deal. So you have to kind of include a player like Wicks with Jaden Reed. He kind of counts because that's really what you got. When you got Reed, you got these other picks. And then the other receiver, their last pick, 256. Grant DuBose from Charlotte, one of my guys in this draft. I love Grant DuBose. Just a football player. Watch him and you go, that guy was born to play receiver. He's sudden. He tracks the ball really well. Great body control on the sideline. Natural hands catcher. Can convert the catch into and we're off. And I counted at least 3 too small motions, gestures, taunts, whatever you want to call them, on touchdowns, including on Deonte Banks. The first round corner out of Maryland went to the New York Giants. DuBose caught a touchdown on him and gave him the too small. I'm talking about a first round pick against a kid from Charlotte. Charlotte, not exactly a blue blood program. I think he's going to make the team, and I think he has a chance to compete to be a person on this team. They got really good value on day 3. Carrington Valentine was a guy, one of Bob McGinn's scouts said he's not going to make it past day 2. He goes at pick 232. Now another scout said, no way. He's a day 3 guy. Physical ability. The kind of guy who you want to take a swing on. Lou Nichols, the running back from Central Michigan. One of the most productive runners in college football. They need a running back 3. Is he better than Patrick Taylor? I think there's actually a lot of similarities with Patrick Taylor in terms of the physical, the way that he runs and some of the lack of high-end athleticism, but functional athleticism that he has. And then I think one of the value picks of this draft anywhere was Anthony Johnson Jr., picked 242 in the 7th round. This was really a great value, someone that was in top 100 lists. We thought was going to go at the very least early on day 3, ends up going all the way into the 7th round. And the Packers are able to find a way to get him. Now they take a kicker, Anders Carlson, who wasn't even Like the best kicker from the SEC in this draft. No, that's not great. They took Sean Clifford. And they didn't just take Sean Clifford. They took him at pick 149 in a draft where he was like the 400th best player by a couple boards. Like, didn't even have a scouting report on NFL.com. I don't understand what you make this pick for, but there was a backup quarterback run, a late day 3 quarterback run. And so the Packers felt like we got to get this guy. I don't know why. He's actually older than Jordan Love. This team is going young. This team is going really young, especially on offense, and in a way that I think is really fun. I think it's really fun, and I'm going to talk about why in just a second. Before we get there, today's episode brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and the calories? I know I do. I eat Built Bars basically every day because of this very thing. It is hard to find something that tastes delicious but still fuels your body in a meaningful way. And that's what Built can do with flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, but 17 grams of protein in these bad boys. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar. And you can go to Built.com and get all the specialty flavors and all that good stuff, and that's what I often do. But you can also go to your local Walmart now. Go to your Sam's Club and find these bars there, and you should absolutely do that. And you should thank me later because they're delicious. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Everydayers, this week on the show, we are going to start our rookie orientation series. If you're not an everydayer, if you're new to the program, or at least new in the last year, we take a look at all of these rookies, or as many as we can get to, as many as we think is important. Talk about where they came from, what they can be, what they can do in the NFL. And we basically dedicate an episode to them. We are going to start that series this week. We have Lucas Van Ness's trainer, his personal defensive line coach, who's going to come on and talk to us about what they've been working on, what they're trying to accomplish, and where he thinks Lucas Van Ness can go from here. So a couple things as we come out of this draft. There are some questions about the offense. And I get that. This receiver room is as exciting a group as I can remember. And not that they're better than 2011, because they're not. And they're not more exciting than 2011. They're not. So maybe not as exciting as I can remember. But what makes them so tantalizing is there is no veteran on this team just because he's a veteran, as has often been the case in the Aaron Rodgers era. There is no, we trust this guy just because you trust him, not because he has the tools to be a really high-level receiver. Unfortunately, especially late in his career, that was the case with someone like Geronimo Allison, who by the way, I have always really, really liked and will never forget the catch he made in 2018 in week 1 against the Chicago Bears. This is not shading any of those guys, because they helped win the Packers a lot of games. And the Packers went to NFC Championship games playing Geronimo Allison heavy snaps. But it wasn't exciting. He was not this dynamic player, not Jordy Nelson, not Devontae Adams. And he never really had the potential to be. He always profiled as a really solid guy who you trusted to be certain places. And, you know, I vividly remember a 4th down against the Giants, 4th and long, that he converts in New York in the snow. He was a useful player for the Packers, but you knew what you were getting. There was a defined ceiling for what you were getting. And so Christian Watson does not have a defined ceiling. Christian Watson could be AJ Green. He had one of the best rookie seasons in Packers history, especially for a receiver. There was a stretch where he was like one of the most productive receivers in the NFL. Romeo Doubs had one of the great training camps of the Aaron Rodgers era. Regardless of position, frankly, they love this guy. Samori Toure provides some exciting things, made some plays last year in limited opportunities. Who knows what he can be? But then you add Jaden Reed, who looks like he is tailor-made to come in right away and start in the slot. All potential. One of Todd McShay's favorite picks in this draft of any team, of any player. The Packers getting Jayden Reed, one of his favorites. Then you add in these day 3 guys that I think can come in and contribute, DeBose and Wicks. There isn't a guy on this roster where I go, I don't really want to see that guy get a chance. Because even Bo Melton, who comes in late in the season, was a Packers type in the draft last year. So I want to see him get an opportunity. Now, are any of them any good? We don't know. We think Christian Watson is pretty good and has the chance to be really, really good. We think Romeo Doubs is solid. We'll see if he can actually carry that number 2 role on offense. There were times early in the season when the Packers were winning games where he was actually the number 1 receiver, it seemed, or at least when they needed him in the fourth quarter, that's what he was. If he can stay healthy, take a little bit of a step, now you've got those top 2 guys, and then you add in the tight ends. This is the most exciting Packers tight end room since the mid-90s. This is, and not that they're going to be Keith Jackson and Mark Chmura the way that those guys were so good together, but it is the idea. And the idea can be dangerous because your anticipation for something, your expectation of something is often not met. And it is often greater and in a lot of ways more fun to anticipate what it's going to be, especially with rookies. Rookies are almost always bad. Most rookies are bad. Even if they become good players, most rookies are bad. That being said, these tight ends, there's no choice. They have to play. There's no one else. It's Josiah DeGuara, it's Tyler Davis. And when you use 2 day 2 picks on Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, those guys are going to play. Josiah DeGuara doesn't even really play tight end anymore. These guys are going to play. So for good or for ill, they are going to contribute in meaningful ways for the Green Bay Packers this season. Jayden Reed is going to have to play a lot of snaps for the Packers this season. That is terrifying in a lot of ways, but it's also really, really exciting to think about. It's really exciting to think about. It's really fun to think about what this could be in a year, 2 years, 3 years. And that is a really fun place to be. Now, all of that being said, and we'll talk plenty about expectations and try and take you down a little bit in terms of your excitement over the course of the next few months. This team needs a veteran at both of those spots. They just do. They just do. They need, if you can convince Mercedes Lewis to come back, convince Mercedes Lewis to come back. Come back, be a coach, get some blocking in, help teach Luke Musgrave how to block, and we'll drop some play action shot plays or play action, low red zone play action plays for you, score a couple touchdowns, right off into the sunset as one of the most beloved Packers of the last 10 years. I don't know who the receiver is that they can bring in. I continue to believe that Corey Davis is not going to be a New York Jet. I think they're kind of just being stubborn about it at this point, but they need a veteran to come in. Post June 1 cut is kind of what you're hoping for at this point. Not a lot out there on the open market. Like, does Jarvis Landry really move the needle for you? You'd like to have someone who's not just a coach. I mean, because if you just want a coach, just like bring back Randall Cobb or call Jordy Nelson and say, hey, can you just come to practice and be an assistant receivers coach? Like, that's not what you want. You want someone who can actually play. And the problem is, by this point in the offseason, those guys are not really out there. So you wait until post June 1. You wait until August or something like that and hope you can find someone that comes in and can help your team. If you can get if the Jets cut Corey Davis, he is the perfect kind of guy to come in, knows the system, is not going to take meaningful reps away from players who are going to play because probably would play the slot. Christian Watson on the outside, Romeo Doubs on the outside. He comes in, he's that big slot player, a lot like Allen Lazard. And, if Jayden Reed is ready to play, great, he can play. If he's not, you've got Corey Davis, who can also play on the outside, mix in, he can block, all of those things. It makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. Are the Packers going to do it? We will see. And I think they have a lot of questions to answer about what they want to accomplish this year. But just this notion that this is all, there's nothing stopping these guys from growing. There's no, like when Josiah DeGuara could not get on the field and he was in the Aaron Rodgers doghouse, they had Mercedes Lewis to put out there. They don't have that guy right now. And in a lot of ways, that's good because it means you are going to have those players have to work through the adversity, and that has value in itself because that's how you learn. You learn by doing, especially in the NFL. But if you don't trust those guys to be out there and you have to put them out there, that can also have deleterious effects on your actual offense, on the actual product you're putting on the field. So it is a double-edged sword. I am so excited to see an offense with Jordan Love, with Aaron Jones, with A.J. Dillon, with this offensive line, with Christian Watson in year 2, with Romeo Doubs in year 2, with Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, with Jaden Reed, with Dontavian Wicks, with Grant Dubose. A young, hyper-talented, hyper-athletic group. Think about what the Giants put together offensively last year. Daniel Jones did not have to do anything in that offense. He did not. I understand, like, in year 4, it's different. But Jordan Love's in year 3. Now, Daniel Jones has been playing, but poorly and been a turnover machine. And Brian Daboll comes in, a lot of run, heavy play action, boots, rolls, quarterback as a runner. Well, Jordan Love has a lot of those same skill sets. He's got good athleticism. You can use his legs as a runner, zone read. You're not going to run quarterback power, but you can use his legs. You can run a little read option. And heavy play action and under center boots and those slide play actions and play action shot plays and a lot of the things that Aaron Rodgers just didn't want to do. This is the perfect encapsulation of it. Aaron Rodgers was first in DVOA throwing to the middle of the field 2020-2021. 17th in DVOA last year. So what did the Packers go out and do? Luke Musgrave, middle of the field target. Jaden Reed, slot player, middle of the field target. Tucker Kraft, middle of the field target. Dontavian Wicks, he's a vertical shot player. Grant Dubose, receiver, but pass catcher. Not necessarily middle of the field target, but could be. He thrives in breakers, slants, posts, digs, slants. And fades. These are all their receivers win vertically too. Great body control. All the guys they picked are like that. This team wants to be different. This team can be different. Matt LaFleur is a good enough coach to get what they got last year out of Aaron Rodgers, or better, if you follow the Daniel Jones kind of plan and just say, okay, we know what you are, we know what you aren't. We're going to give you an opportunity to just be good enough for us. That's the baseline. And then anything above that is gravy. We saw it work last year. And I want to add this too. For as bad as it was at times for Aaron Rodgers, this was the 12th best team by DVOA last year, a top 12 offense by DVOA, despite the fact that Aaron Rodgers was bottom quartile QBR, bottom quartile EPA per play, DVOA, all the advanced metrics said Aaron Rodgers was one of the 8 to 10 to 12 worst quarterbacks in football last year. Certainly lower half. What exactly leads you to believe that you can't manufacture that level of quarterback play in an era where it has never been easier to manufacture that level of quarterback play in the exact scheme that Matt LaFleur wants to run? That they got Brock Purdy to excel in, that Jared Goff went to his Super Bowl playing, that Jimmy G went to his Super Bowl playing, that Kirk Cousins continues to go to the playoffs playing despite being limited in a lot of different ways. Arm talent, but limitations. This is a really exciting team. Can they be good? Can they be good? I think they can, but they're going to need some veteran help. Before we finish up, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. And please go subscribe to The Leap. The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Please go do that. We have a lot of great stuff coming up this offseason as we move through all of these picks, trying to help you get to know all of these guys a little bit better. The defensive front and the investments made on defense now. You add Lucas Van Ness, multiple defensive linemen on day 3. There are no more excuses for Joe Barry. None. There's talent here. You lose Rashawn Gary. He's recovering from a major injury. You drop in a top 15 pick to come in and essentially recreate his skill set because that's what he is. A big, physical, bull-rushing, nasty MFer. You add in versatile defensive line pieces. Guys who can rush the passer. Who can create some chaos. Who can live on the other side of the line of scrimmage. This is it. If the Packers are good or not, I don't know. But the defense has to be good. It has the talent to be good. The Packers have said they're still, monitoring what's going on with Adrian Amos. We'll see what happens there. I don't know that bringing him back is the best move, but it might be their only move. I still think John Johnson probably has more to give, but I would understand saying, okay, there's some continuity here while someone like Anthony Johnson gets up to speed. I think he could actually legitimately start for the Packers now or in a year. This secondary, I'm really bullish on, but I was last year and they did not perform. But this front is even better now. Kenny Clark has some help. Devontae Wyatt going to move into a better role. And I went back and looked. The starters on this team, you're only replacing on defense, essentially, Dean Lowry, who was bad last year, and Adrian Amos, who was bad last year. Now, you have to replace them with better players, but Devontae Wyatt was drafted to be a better player. You have to feel like between Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, Kobe Wooden, these guys that you've added, that they can be better than Dean Lowry was and Jerron Reed was. Jerron Reed had like 2 good games. And with Amos, can Rudy Ford give you something there? Are going to get something from Anthony Johnson? Maybe you just bring him back and then you're not losing anything. And then it really is just Dean Lowry. And then you're hoping year 2 leap from Quay Walker, year 2 leap from Devontae Wyatt. You get Eric Stokes back healthy at some point. Keyshawn Nixon gets a full offseason to prepare to be the nickel. Darnell Savage, maybe you move him around. Different kind of role, different kind of defense. If they lean more into some of the stuff that they were doing at the end of last season, how does that change things? They have continuity on a defense where Jair Alexander was an all-pro last year. Kenny Clark is a Pro Bowl caliber player. We are 1 year removed from Devondre Campbell being an all-pro. Russell Douglas was a borderline all-pro 2 years ago. That same year that Devondre was in 2021. So you have high-level talent. Rashawn Gary was on his way to at least a Pro Bowl season last year before he got hurt, if not an all-pro season. Probably not an all-pro given the quality of the pass rushers in the league right now, but certainly a Pro Bowl kind of season. You're bringing all those guys back. You have to produce now. And then on offense, okay, you're replacing the quarterback. We've talked about some of the things there. I think you can get better raw quarterback play, but even with the quarterback issues, and for whatever the problems are with the players not being in the right places and not running the right routes, all that stuff, this was one of the 12 best offenses in the league, one of the 12 best teams in the league, despite the defensive misgivings, in part because Aaron Jones is awesome, A.J. Dillon is awesome, and Matt LaFleur is a really good coach. They can ham and egg this thing together. Your offensive line, you have continuity there. Your backfield, you have continuity there. And really your receiver room. You lose Allen Lazard, but Christian Watson was your number one receiver by the end of the year. And early in the season, even when Allen Lazard was around, Romeo Doubs was really carrying this passing game in a lot of ways. So, okay, losing Lazard hurts. Lazard was a good player, a nice player. I always liked Allen Lazard. You have to find that relationship. Well, you used a second-round pick on a guy that you think can come in and produce for you in that spot. Can you get another veteran to come in and solidify that? That would be great. And then the same is true at tight end. This tight end room is so much more talented than it was last year. So much more. I can't even tell you how much more talented it is. But are they better? We'll see. It would really help. I would feel light years better about this team if they brought in a veteran like Corey Davis and a veteran like Mercedes Lewis. I would say I'm already like hammer the over 7.5, hammer them at 4. It was 5-1 at one point on FanDuel for the Packers to win the NFC North. I think it's come back down a little bit. I think it's more like plus 410. I got it at plus 425. I think certainly in that 4-1 kind of range. Very happy about that. I may check as soon as we're done recording to go see if I can get it at 5-1. I would feel really good about that because this division is wide open. This conference is wide open. And I think this Packers roster is deceptively talented right now. That doesn't mean they're perfect. They have to make some moves to get better, but a lot that I think they can still get done here. All right, back this week. Rookie orientation series starts this week. And let me know what you guys want to hear in the offseason, what you guys want to talk about, what you guys want to discuss. We're still going to be here 4 or 5 days a week in the offseason. So make sure you are hanging out with us here. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come, hit us up. Live shows, more breaking news. I don't know what could break at this point. We're going to do some live shows, though, over the course of the offseason, just so we can hang out and talk. Come hang out. Let's hang out. Everyone is welcome on the Locked On Packers podcast. And so subscribe on YouTube so that you can stay Locked On Packers.